Ready? Yeah, good to go. It's not about the... Delegates, good morning. Could I call Congress to order, please? Thank you. That reminds me of countdown. It's a bit late. I've got two announcements this morning. The York Disabled Workers Cooperative have raised £1,300 and wish to thank Congress delegates. Double it. Okay. Who's that? Northwest? Are you saying National should double it? Yeah. Okay. And they wish to thank Congress delegates for the tremendous support. This will enable the cooperative to continue helping young disabled people into work. And they still have some hand-carved items left, so come and make us an offer, it says. And also the winners of the Credit Union Prize draw. The first was Lynette McGaffin, North Western Irish region. Second was Barney Stoddard, North Western Irish region. And third was Kenny Gilberthorpe, Yorkshire, North Derbyshire region. Well done. Now we're on to Standing Orders Committee report number 6.
President Congress, Helen Johnson, Midland and East Coast Region, moving SOC report number 6. Withdrawn motions. Just to confirm that the following motion was withdrawn from the rostrum on Tuesday. Motion 386, fracking, standing in the name of Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Region. And the following motion withdrawn from the rostrum yesterday. Composite motion 2, accompanying reps funding, standing in the name of London Region. This comprised motion 59, revised payments for accompanying reps, and motion 60, accompanying reps. Bucket collections. Have you got your hands in your pockets? Right. Yesterday's bucket collection by Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Region for Jessica's sarcoma awareness raised the sum of £370.32.
The region are adding to that. Anybody else? 500, yep. Let's hear it for 500 from anybody else. Midland, thank you. I'm going around the room. Midland. Southern. Okay, that's a yes. Northern. Northern. Yep, yes, thank you, Billy. Scotland. Yep, thank you. Yep, Wales. Thank you. Northwestern Irish. Thank you. Birmingham, I think you've already. And London. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. President Congress, I move SOC report number 6.
Thank you, Helen. Anybody? No? Nobody wants to speak against? No? In that case, can I put Standing Orders Committee report number 6 to the vote? All those in favour? Anyone against? That's okay. Thank you. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. So Congress, our first item of business is the social policy. General motions 325, 326, 327 and 329. If you could come to the front, please. And also, I'm going to call the next lot as well, because I think there's enough seats. 393, 394, 396, 397, 398, 400 on social policy and housing.
Madam President, please, ma'am, raise the point of order.
Yep.
Jan Smith, London Region, raising a point of order. Congress, I feel it is only right that you should know Yesterday, when the CEC gave the response on the 4 resolutions that were spoken on by myself in one go, the CEC said there had been no dialogue with the branch. I want to confirm there was never any communication to the branch whatsoever. In fact, you might have seen me go and speak to Tim, the General Secretary. Congress, the dialogue was in the normal manner where it went to the region. And here is the communications that went back to say there was an explanation to those rules. Some of you may have wanted to vote for it, but from the explanation given by the CEC, you voted against. There has been a slur on my branch, which I have deeply taken it personally. So please, Congress, accept my point of order.
Thank you for that, and I'm sorry that's how you feel, I really am. And obviously any complaints will be dealt with in the appropriate manner. Yeah. Move of 325.
President, Congress, delegates, Jeff Holloway, North Western Irish Region, MO1 branch at Matalan. First time delegate, first time speaker. Moving motion 325, gambling adverts. We ask Congress and the CEC to support this motion to stop gambling adverts in between sporting events on the media before 9 p.m. We believe this encourages young people to bet on their phones and their mobile devices. People with a gambling problem are 15 times more likely to kill themselves, according to the largest study of its kind. Academics at Lund University, Sweden, monitored more than 2,000 people with gambling disorders, finding a significantly elevated risk of suicide among participants. Compared with the general population over an 11-year period. If the results were applied in the UK, that would indicate around 500 suicides a year in which gambling played a part of more than 10 a week in this country. One owner of a gambling company paid themselves £260 million last year. Gambling used to be just in the bookies, for adults. Now, kids are being bombarded with it every time you turn the TV on. Sporting events, football, which loads of children watch, you're getting bombarded with these adverts. It's a model. And I believe that, or we believe that no advert should be shown before 9 p.m. And if the programme goes over 9 p.m, the adverts still should be banned. The government doesn't care. They're making millions in taxes, but it is damaging the communities. It's linked to a lot of problems in homes, people losing their houses. It's also been linked to domestic abuse. So we can make a start by banning all the adverts that relate to gambling. We can't advertise cigarettes, which is an addiction. Why are we allowing gambling adverts when children are watching the TV? There are over 400,000 gambling addicts in the country. This affects about 2 million people and their families. Last year alone, 100 people with pathological gambling addictions were hospitalised. The gambling industry is making out that their adverts are easy to win. You don't see the poor bookies. Young children are spending £16 a day on gambling. When they have no money left, they will resort to stealing from their families or other places. This affects the whole community. We see what happens to drug addicts. I know people who spend all their wages chasing their losses. Their families go without. Banning adverts before 9 p.m. on all commercial platforms is not going to stop thousands and thousands of current addicts, but it will help to stop the recruitment of our children and grandchildren being the new addicts. Please support this motion.
Thanks, Jeff. Seconder? Formally, no, there is a seconder.
Morning. President, Congress, delegates, Lisa Llewellyn, North Western Irish region, first time delegate, first time speaker. Seconding motion 325, gambling adverts. As Jeff rightly said, gambling is having an impact on all our communities. If you look at any high street or shopping centre, betting shops or opportunities to bet are everywhere. On the short walk down here, on one street, I counted 10 shops or opportunities to bet. It's on our high streets and in our living rooms. Living rooms. Congress, please can I ask you to think about that for one moment? How dare they? How dare they invade my home that I worked hard as a single mum to provide for my children. My home, a safe haven, a place to feel protected, safe and secure, a place to close the door and forget all pressures of the outside world. They seem to think it's okay to do this. It's okay to glorify, advertise and sell addiction, temptation to my children, to your children, to all our younger generation who are our future. Well, Congress, not on my watch. Congress, I ask you to please support this motion that I second. Thank you.
Well done, Lisa. To have to wait till the last morning to make your first speech. Well done. Mover of 326, please.
Good morning, Madam President, Congress, delegates. Mary Louise Harrison, Midlands and East Coast region, moving motion 326, scam robocalls from abroad need to be made illegal. How many of you have received scam robocalls? In 2018 alone, over 4.5 billion of these calls were made. Scam robocalls from abroad need to be made illegal. From the vast majority of us, these calls are annoying and invading our privacy, but nothing more. But for others, they have had devastating effect. Their lives and that of their families ruined. They don't just rob people of their money, but their independence, and in some instances, have led to them taking their lives. We must do more to stop them. At the moment, the emphasis is on us, the consumer, to try and protect ourselves, but call blocking or signing up to the telephone preference service does not offer full protection. And things are about to get worse. It is estimated that soon 90% of all robocalls will falsely appear as if they were coming from our contact books. No longer will we hear that phony automated voice. Instead, we will have voice manipulation, impersonation, and automation technologies to fool us into thinking and accepting their scams. We need to work now, and we need to work fast. We need to outlaw all robocalls. We need to outlaw the sale of our personal details to third parties for the supposed purpose of marketing and communication. This can be done, but our politicians don't seem to want to do it. Why? Because they can gain from this practice, as was demonstrated with Cambridge Analytica during the EU referendum. The emphasis shouldn't be on us as consumers, but on those companies and individuals whose sole aim is to use and abuse us for their criminal ends and to steal from our hard-earned money. So, Congress, I ask you to support this motion and stop scam robocalls once and for all. I move.
Thank you, Mary Louise. Seconder.
Madam President, Congress. Kev Duddin, Midlands and East Coast Region, seconding motion 326. Brothers and sisters, my colleague has stated on some of the facts of these scam calls, and I would say quite a lot of us have got personal experience or members of the family what have been involved in all these type of scam calls. I'll give you a personal one, which was with my mother when I was visiting her. The phone rings, my mother answers the phone, hello, male voice, hello, is that Mrs. Duddin? Mother, yes, voice, I'm ringing up about your internet and the effect it has on your computer. Mother looking puzzled, the internet? Voice, yes. Mother, I do not have a computer, and is the internet some sort of cafe? Line goes dead. Fortunately, my mum, at 89, has a full wit and faculties about her. Unfortunately, a lot of elderly who are being targeted by these people are not in the same boat. Yeah, due to illness, dementia, and have lost thousands from their accounts. As my colleague said, some have took their own lives because of it. What is worse is that recently 4 companies, and we're in this country, have just been fined for making scam calls, then ringing the people who they made the calls to sell their products back to block scam calls. They were fined from 70,000 to 80,000 apiece. It's about time that more should be done by the government and not by the individuals. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Well done, Kevin. Mover of 327.
President, Congress, Margaret Boyd, GMB Scotland, moving 327, film production in our cities. Film production and TV work in our cities and towns are happening all over the UK. So what do we know of compensation from film companies to city councils? Is there a vast amount of money being exchanged? If so, how much? And is it being put back into the cities and towns? In Glasgow since 2017, the filming and broadcasting generated £15 million for the Glasgow economy. One Freedom of Information requested to Glasgow City Council came back with a response that the council had been paid less than £35,000 over a 5-year period by the film companies to compensate for street closures, rescheduled bus times and routes for days at a time. We all enjoy the movies, but are the citizens of our national cities and towns being rewarded accordingly for the disruptions and inconveniences by the film companies? Do we believe the FOI findings from Glasgow City Council? We need more transparency in what the funds are being spent on to further improve our cities. Congress, we ask that GMB lobbies the MPs of the UK Government and work with city councillors for a clear response as to where the funds are placed and spent on our cities. Thank you. I move.
Thank you, Margaret. Seconder? Was there a seconder? Formally, thank you. Mover on 329.
President, Congress, Gavin Downey, London Region, moving motion 329 on legalisation of drugs. Congress, the main point about this motion is not how terrible were the consequences for ordinary communities across America after the legalisation of prescription-grade heroin in the form of opium-based painkillers, oxycodone and viacodine, produced by big American pharmaceutical companies. These consequences were truly shocking. The sheer scale of the numbers killed by being prescribed a drug for non-fatal conditions is truly shocking. The consequences for the children of the adults who became addicted to what junk science claimed were not highly addictive drugs were utterly terrible. The main point is that we need to learn lessons for us in the UK from this shocking story. These same painkillers are available here today. The first lesson is what happened following the legalisation of what had been an illegal drug was the exact opposite of what are claimed to be the benefits of legalisation of drugs, namely displacing the gangs with legal outlets which would pay taxes and be controlled. Patients were able to get prescriptions for these drugs from their doctors, but the drugs were expensive and doctors were reluctant to prescribe these drugs due to fears of addiction. First, the drugs became street drugs in an illegal market. Second, the Mexican drug cartels decided to undersell the American pharmaceutical companies by increasing production of heroin and cutting the prices. They also increased its potency. So addicted Americans found illegal Mexican cinnamon heroin was cheaper and stronger than the legal pills. There has been an explosion in the illegal market. We need to guard against this happening in the UK. The best guide to any theory about the legalisation of drugs is what happens in practice when it is tried. This is the reason why the motion calls for GMB-supported MPs to try to get parliamentary select committees to examine this terrible story and set out again the reasons why dangerous drugs should be strictly controlled, not legalised. The second lesson is that from the thalidomide scandal, learned in this country first should not be forgotten. Dangerous and highly addictive drugs should only be allowed in strictly controlled conditions after their safety and effectiveness has been properly tested and scientifically proven. Yes, this means opposing the legalisation of drugs outside this process, no matter how vociferous those calling for legalisation happen to be. Yes, illegal markets cannot be totally eliminated. They can and should be driven underground and kept there. Please support. I move.
Thank you, Gavin. Seconder? Is there a seconder for 329? Sorry, I can't hear so well up here. Thank you. In that case, does anybody wish to speak against? Yep. Okay. Yep. Dave? Just make it clear which one you're speaking against.
President, Congress, David Tuckwell, not speaking with the backing of Southern Region, on 329, regulation or illegal drugs. During the 60s and 70s, there was obviously major problems with barbiturates and tranquilizers such as Valium, Librium, and so on, what was termed often as mother's little helper. It was kind of drugs that came into everyday life with everybody. It wasn't something that people sold on street corners. They were prescribed by doctors, and we realised the problem and we changed the nature of that prescribing. Thalidomide, which is also mentioned in the motion, was also something which caused problems, and as soon as those problems were recognised, the drug was withdrawn, although it still has a valid medical use still, but it's much more strictly controlled. I think that the motion confuses the legal and illegal drugs market. It confuses opioids with heroin. Opioids are a legal product. Heroin is not a legal product. And the markets that the motion refers to are also illegal and legal. And that obviously opioids that are sold on the black market are illegal, but they are actually a legal drug. I think also that the US drugs regulation and approval authorities are not ours. The drugs companies here are completely differently controlled, and we have different controls on the management of drugs. Bringing these drugs into state management is not legalization. Many countries and US states have legalized some aspects of the drug markets, most notably cannabis. We need to monitor and control and tax and manage these drugs so that we can also manage the problems. We can starve criminals of the funds that they would get and use elsewhere to damage our lives. Whilst I understand and sympathise with this motion, as I say, I think it's confused, ill-considered and ill-conceived, and I ask you to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Does anybody else want to comment on this debate? Yeah?
Morning, Congress. Paul Reimer, Birmingham and West Midlands. I think everything I was just about to say has been said very well, opposing this motion. The one thing I would add, I thank London for putting it on the agenda, because when I did some research on it this morning, on our policy document, 163 pages of text. I did a word search. There was nothing in there about drugs. There wasn't a word in there about cannabis. And when we sit about social exclusion and social inclusion, if we don't approach this problem, which affects all our members' families, I'm sure in one form or another. So I just oppose so we can get it onto the agenda for a proper debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Is there anybody else that wants to come in on this debate? No? Gavin, do you want the right of reply? No? No, okay, thank you. No other speakers on any of the other motions? Okay. Can I ask then Gordon Gibbs on behalf of the CEC to respond?
President, Congress, Gordon Gibbs speaking on behalf of the CEC. The CEC are supporting motion 326 and motion 329 with qualifications. On motion 326, the CEC is concerned about duplicating efforts made by the organisation whose Calling Time campaign has already amassed more than 500,000 supporters on this issue. This motion, if this motion passes, the CEC are calling for a qualification to affirm our commitment to working in support of them and others to apply pressure and awareness, including exploiting responses within the reason to prevent international robocalls where these are not currently covered by UK law. On motion 329, the qualification is that the CEC has interpreted the wording of the motion to be in relation to highly addictive and dangerous synthetic opioid drugs such as fentanyl. We agree that these highly dangerous synthetic drugs should not be legalised. However, Congress has not recently debated its position on the potential legislation of other drugs, such as non-synthetic cannabis. If a demand for such a debate arose, there would have to be a dedicated and informed debate on those topics, and we wish to reserve our right to consider these questions separately to this motion. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking for motion 326 and motion 329 to be supported with the qualifications I've laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. I'll now put those motions to the vote. Motion 325, the CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Midland and East Coast, do you accept the qualification? Thank you. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's carried. Motion 327, the CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's carried. Motion 329, London Region, do you accept the qualification? Yep. Thank you. So I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's also carried. Thank you. Before I move on to the next debate, tomorrow is the 2nd anniversary of Grenfell. So I'm going to ask us to stand in a minute's silence to remember the 72 victims who lost. Thank you, Congress. And just so you know, there is a silent walk tomorrow and a national rally on Saturday in central London. Could I have the mover of motion 393, please?
Morning, Congress. Morning. Gordon Brunning, London Region, moving motion 393, accessible housing. As individuals, as a collective, we have spent the past 3 days debating with humour, with sadness, and with passion. Important matters which need informed and important decisions made. However, before those decisions can and were made, we were given all the relevant information to allow us to do so and to make those informed decisions. When it comes to the housing market and accessibility, this frustratingly and disappointingly is not the case, as our disabled members are finding. We all know that finding the ideal property in a turbulent housing market can be difficult for everyone. Able-bodied members find it difficult to choose and decide. This is further hampered for our disabled members when it comes to the challenges for our disabled members who need additional information on accessibility to make an informed decision. Currently, this important and vital information is not readily available, as it should be, for our disabled members to make that important life-changing decision. We call on this GMB Congress and its associated disabled groups to actively and positively support the motion, to fully engage in urgent, meaningful dialogue with all leading estate agents, housing associations and local authorities to ensure they include all the appropriate information as part of a standard information pack that they now or should supply to prospective home buyers. In supporting this motion, we can and will achieve what is not an unreasonable or unrealistic request if we truly wish to live in an all-inclusive, accessible and equality-led society. Please support the motion. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Seconder.
President, Congress, Stephen Jones, London Region, seconding the motion on accessible housing. As we've just heard from the speech from Gordon a moment ago, the disabled people have always been disadvantaged and always have a bit more of an uphill struggle than able-bodied people and normal people. So, Conference, we have heard about the many problems and difficulties faced by our disabled members when trying to make an informed decision about where and why to purchase a new home. Purchasing a new home, by the way, is a very big, massive undertaking and is one of the most stressful things you can do in your lifetime. It is clear to me, and I hope you will agree, that the standard information and from estate agents and that the estate agents hold and provide on properties they have for sale currently are inadequate and they have to be improved significantly. Such things are things that most people don't even think about, like door widths, drop curbs and ramps, adaptions and accessible information and improvements, side entrances. The only way to get this vital information and important information across and to ensure that we live in a truly all-inclusive, accessible society is to engage in urgent, meaningful consultation with the estate agents, local authorities and housing associations. That is why I fully endorse this motion and would encourage you all to support this motion. Please support. I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mover of 394. 394. No, London Region? That will fall if nobody speaks on it. Formally move and formally second. Okay, thank you. Mover of 396.
Congress, President, Doug Rigby, Braintree Bocking Branch, B22. London Region, move in motion 396. Congress, we live in one of the richest countries in the world. In this day and age, we should not have people sleeping rough or homeless people. In November 2018, there was analysis carried out by Shelter. It was found that there were 320,000 people, 320,000 people in the UK living on the streets. Within Brighton and Hove this week, and in autumn 2018, there were 64 people counted as sleeping rough. Brighton was ranked to be 10th local authority with people sleeping rough. London was reported the highest, with 170,000 homeless people out of the London Borough of Newham. Was the highest. Total people homeless, 14,611, with 76 people sleeping rough. There should be more emphasis on looking after our ex-forces personnel. There are hundreds of Ministry of Defence buildings that have closed and remain closed. They're empty. Most of infrastructure's in them already and should be put into use and not remain empty. While we're aware some people choose to sleep rough, most, however, would prefer shelter and food. Basics, just basics. Congress, I ask you to support this motion.
Thank you, Douglas. Seconder.
Good morning, President, Congress. Jacqueline Burnett-Pitt from Birmingham and West Midland Region, first-time delegate to GMB Conference. Thank you. Seconding motion 396, temporary housing for homeless people. As a homeless prevention officer myself, I have first-hand knowledge and experience dealing with the lack of temporary accommodation provision for homeless families. Most, if not all, local authorities are having to place families into hotels as temporary accommodation, where the families may have to be moved week by week as the hotel is getting booked up. Some of the hotels can be over 10 miles or more away from the area that the families have actually been made homeless from, which causes the family more stress on top of the stress that they are facing becoming homeless. As the motion states, this is 2019. Homelessness is at an all-time high. Ludicrous, really, as the UK is a rich country. Local authorities should not be placing homeless families into the Travelodge, which is widely used, at astronomical costs per week. A lot of this has happened since the induction of the Homeless Reduction Act 2018. It's made matters worse, not better. Before the HRA, a decision I could make about someone's eligibility for permanent accommodation could be made within 28 days. Since the induction of the HRA, this has to be after 56 days. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, the legal details, but it is actually after 112 days. Being homeless is stressful enough without having to move from hotel to hotel. This is due to the lack of available temporary accommodation for homeless families. I'm talking about self-contained accommodation, not hotels. When we look at, oh sorry, we're on the red light. Okay, Congress, it is imperative the GMB calls upon MPs and other services to put into use not just all defence buildings for temporary accommodation, but also to James Brokenshaw, Minister of Health, Communities and Local Government, UK, to make more self-contained properties available for use as temporary accommodation. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Well done, well done.
President, Congress, Brendan Duffield, London Region, moving motions 397, protecting the elderly. This Congress is aware that it's difficult to protect the older and more vulnerable members of your family, especially if you live miles away. They can fall victims to scams via telephones or websites or to doorstep criminals who call at the adults' homes under the guise of legitimate businesses and offer to fix an often non-existent problem within their properties. This is financial abuse, and the adults at risk can often be persuaded to part with very large sums of cash and in some cases even their life savings. According to Age UK, the average age of male scam victims is 74. A third of older people who fell for scams may have lost £1,000 or more. Shortly before this motion was written, the Vulnerability Register Service was set up nationwide. This allowed a vulnerable individual to register with the service. Reputable organisations such as utilities companies and financial services are able to check the services to see if an individual that they will be working for registered and vulnerable and needs to be treated in an appropriate manner and with the right level of sensitivity. This service is available across the UK. This, however, is for reputable companies. What then of the rogue traders? Councils have, since the creation of the Care Act 2014, been responsible for the creation of safeguarding adult boards. The duty of such a board is to protect adults at risk and raise awareness of safeguarding adults throughout any area. We propose that the GMB lobby both councils and the Vulnerability Registration Service to work to extend the scope of registering services. Rogue traders will not pay attention to the register. However, the service that uses the registration service, particularly banks, are best placed to notice unusual activities such as withdrawal of large amounts of cash. The unusual activities can then be referred to the Safeguarding Board. In the two groups working together, it should be possible to catch the financial abuse of the vulnerable as it happens. Congress, I move.
Well done, Brendan, thank you. Seconder.
President, Congress, Cathy Holland, seconding motion 397. I have worked in the care sector most of my working life, and part of that was with the elderly. My daughter, who is now following in my footsteps, made a valid point the other day. The DBS is only valid for that day, unless you choose, like she has, to pay for the live version. So what protection does it give our most vulnerable? The sad fact, it can also be from their own family, like I have witnessed. But as far as I can see, the only total protection is monitoring from another person, which would seem to be impossible. But the local authority could put in support for a list of approved contractors to help. We would like GMB to lobby the government to put this small measure in place. I second.
Thanks, Cathy. Mover of motion 398.
Stevie Robertson, Birmingham West Midlands Region, moving motion 398, private rental discrimination known as no DSS. Congress, Madam President, brothers and sisters, this Congress welcomes that in April this year, a House of Commons All-Party Work and Pensions Select Committee finally recognised that the burning injustice of no DSS and the wall of prejudice that stops hundreds of thousands of renters who need to claim benefit from obtaining good quality and well-managed accommodation. Because of the lack of availability of social housing, more than a fifth of those renting privately are reliant on housing benefit, either wholly or partly, to cover their rent, according to figures in 2017. No DSS policies are as outdated and unwelcome as the no blacks, no Irish, no dogs discrimination of the 1950s. It's an outrageous example of how blatant prejudice is still prevalent today. The no DSS practice amounts to indirect discrimination and breaches the equality law because it disproportionately affects women and those people with disabilities. This Congress also welcomes the work of the House and Charity Shelter, who now have about 20 legal cases in progressing against landlords and agents who refuse to rent to people with housing benefits. But unfortunately, these cases have to be tackled independently through the courts one by one. Letting agencies and landlords often claim that they've not got any choice but to insert these clauses because the mortgage and insurance agreements demand it. So really, the greedy bankers, the mortgage lenders, the insurance companies, they're also complicit and guilty of this form of discrimination. We could all just wait for the Common Selects Committee to make the recommendations and hope that this makes a difference, probably to find that the recommendations get kicked into the long grass and the practice carries on. So this is not good enough, and we can't rely on this lot or believe anything that they bloody say. And that's why the GMB calls on the future Labour government to commit to, in its next manifesto, to introduce legislation to put a stop to no DSS policies with harsh penalties for those who perpetrate this form of discrimination. We, the GMB, we want more blacks, more dogs, more Irish, more DSS. Comrades, I move.
Well done, Stephen. Thank you. Seconder.
Morning, President. Morning, Congress. Christina Dada, Birmingham West Midlands Region, seconding motion 398, private rental, otherwise known as no DSS. The struggle for renters on housing benefit is real. Successive governments have failed to prioritise this need for good homes for people on low incomes. Many people are stuck on social housing waiting lists for years on end. The dwindling numbers of social homes and high house prices mean the only option is to grapple with the expensive and unstable private renting market. No DSS policies and that practice of barring tenants on housing benefit is wreaking havoc on people's search for a home. It's locking people out of private renting when it is increasingly their only option, and worst case, leaving families facing homelessness. This is clearly visible if you just walk through our towns and cities. A whopping 5 of England's leading letting agents actively are discriminating against these tenants on housing benefit, according to a report by Shelter and the National Housing Federation. A 2017 survey by YouGov of more than 1,000 private rental landlords confirmed this widespread prejudice, showing that 6 in every 10 would not accept it. Another survey of 4,000 people done by YouGov shows a third couldn't rent a property and ended up homeless. Given there are over 1 million private renting households out there in the UK alone who receive housing benefit, this means the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of people who may have come across this problem. This has to stop. This has to stop now. The next Labour government needs to stop this no DSS policy, get it banned. It's blatant discrimination. Those greedy landlords and letting agents need dealing with. By doing this, it would go some way to show support and encourage fairer and unprejudiced letting of accommodation for tenants and not just those rich ones. I second.
Well done, Christina, thank you. Mover of motion 400. Yeah, decide who's moving, who's seconding. Come on.
Good morning, Congress. President Congress, Dr. Alade Odumosu from the Southern Region, moving motion 400 on estate demolition. This particular motion deals with something I'm very familiar with because I was one of the original advisors to John Prescott when he was the Deputy Prime Minister. It was easier then because the estate we were coming from are rat-infested and very deprived. So they said they set up the NDC programs so that they regenerate it and then give us the power to rule in our own communities and manage all the resources there. They took us all over UK, took us to Europe too, to go and see good examples, and we advised government ministers about things they should do to make sure that the communities are very integral to everything they do while regenerating buildings. But the ironic thing was, the good ones we went to in UK, like in Liverpool, in Hoyton, or in Glasgow, by that time were being managed by the communities themselves. But the ones that are now happening in London are being managed by speculators like lease lending and all those greedy people who just come in to make money. They are building homes whereby the communities that used to live there before can't afford to live there anymore. And they call it some crazy names that it's affordable. I don't know who it's affordable to, but most of the people who used to live there before can't afford to buy anything in that place anymore. And the ironic thing is the part where I live, which is in Southwark, Elephant and Castle to Old Kent Road and all those places, all the good community members that were moved away from there, they've been moved to so far away, they don't know that according to the rules and the conditions that we all signed up to initially, they had the right to come back. Nobody tells them that. And then we then find this influx of people coming from the Eastern Asia and from Russia and everybody coming in to buy apartments at Elephant and Castle and all those places. So nobody could come and buy anymore because the competition for the place, the prices have gone up. But the ironic thing to me is that when people come in with suitcases loaded with money, nobody asks them where they got it from. But if you and I go to a bank to go and take £5,000 out, they'll be asking us how we earn it, which is crazy, but that's how people come and buy things that then make it impossible for us to buy our own stuff. In terms of the breaking of the estates and the demolition, it was a good idea when it started because it could have made the people and the environment very good and make it neater. I was fed up at the time of coming home in the middle of the night and seeing a big rat in front of my door having a cigar and not even running away when they see human beings. So that motivated me to think that regeneration and breaking up of the places will be a good idea. But once the greedy people came into it, it becomes something else. And once our cousins and brothers from Eastern Europe were then brought in to come and build the places, quality control went out of the window because the councils were deprived of that department, so nobody goes out to go and see what kind of materials, what kind of things they are building for us. It was all good advising government ministers. It was a good recce. I had 5 years of it. But it's really bad when people who are in the community cannot have influence on it. So please, I hope this motion that calls for support from GMB to make sure people are empowered to make decisions for their side goes through. Please, I move.
Thank you, Duke. Well done. Seconder.
Morning. President Congress, Kevin Quinn, Southern Region, first time delegate, second time speaker. Thanks. In 2015, it was agreed at Congress that we, GMB, would support citizens, many of them members of the GMB themselves, who reside on housing estates facing redevelopment or demolition and subsequent relocation, sometimes several hundred miles from home. With this, giant steps have been made, but there are many more to be gained. We all know that the vast majority of those people under threat and likely to be affected are working class and either on low pay with little job prospects. Their further punishment is one of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. In agreement with the GMB, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn and London Mayor Sadiq Khan have stated the policy of all residents to receive binding ballots. Like when we as a union take forward a dispute, we ballot our members. This motion is a continued endorsement of the policy that members are entitled to a properly constituted ballot. We welcome Corbyn and Khan's policies, especially with the stipulation that any ballot is free from loopholes. Property developers and councils will do everything within their power to circumvent the rules. The former are driven by corporate greed and the latter are impotent and incompetent. Democracy needs to be defended. As the less than estimable London Evening Standard reported on the 31st of May, confirming to little surprise, 80% of the new homes at the dystopically named regeneration zone, Elephant Park, formerly the Haygate estate in Elephant and Castle, London, have been sold to overseas investors. This systematic dismantling of communities in the name of progress and the crass label gentrification is far from gentlemanly and must be resisted at every able opportunity. Crucially, this is a nationwide issue, not just a southern one. Congress, I second this motion. Please support.
Perfect. Well done. Does anybody want to speak against these motions? No? Then can I ask Margaret Hughes to respond on behalf of the CEC? And while she's coming up, can I ask movers and seconders of 416, 418, 419, 420, 421 and Composite 20 to come to the front as well, please?
President Congress, Margaret Hughes speaking on behalf of the CEC on motion 394. The CEC are asking for motion 394 to be referred. CEC wholeheartedly supports the principle of tackling the current homelessness crisis, but it's important we get it right. Referral would give the CEC opportunity to speak with relevant organisations with regards to the law and squatting housing and homelessness. And we understand what the consequences would be, what would be required to change the law, and what role members working in local government would play. Local authorities already have powers through empty dwelling management orders, and it would be good to consider our members' experiences as to what currently works and what does not. Therefore, Congress, CEC is asking for motion 394 to be referred for the reasons I have laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. London Region, do you agree to refer motion 394? Thank you. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Motion 393, I can take as a group. So I can take 393, 396, 397, 398, 400 as the CEC are supporting all those motions. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? They're all carried. We now go on to social policy, which is welfare. So could I have the mover of 416, please?
Kevin Baker, Birmingham West Midlands Region, speaking on motion 416, Universal Credit Childcare Policy. President, Congress,
This Congress calls for change and is deeply concerned with the universal credit scheme policy on childcare, which is forcing the poorest of society to pay childcare costs up front, then face weeks or even months before being reimbursed. This Congress is aware that many such households are in a precarious financial positions and half of low-income families have no savings. It is a fact that the poorest households will receive less for their childcare costs under the new system. This Congress finds this unacceptable. A report published 23rd of the 12th 18 by Work Pension Committee shows universal credit is in fact stopping people returning to work, and that the way childcare costs are paid is in direct conflict with the government's key aim of getting more people into work. While we wholly support Frank Field, the chair of the Work Pensions Committee, in his statement that if the government had set out to design a system to make it harder for parents to get to work, they could hardly have done better. Congress, we believe that many parents will face a stark choice: turn down a job offer, turn down additional hours at work, or get themselves into debt in order to pay for childcare. This is supported by the report into universal credit carried out by the charity Save the Children. It is strongly believed that this policy is driving parents into despair, debt, and causing untold stress. This policy also creates problems for childcare providers, and in reality is actively working to prevent the government achieving its aims of getting more people back into work. We are disgusted at the government's suggestion that this solution for struggling parents is to take on more debt. The universal credit childcare payment arrangements are part of an inherently unfair system which benefits those on far higher incomes who receive help with childcare through their tax system. This Congress must call on the government to carry out a comprehensive redesign of the childcare element of universal credit to mitigate the impact on poorer families before the rollout of this benefit accelerates. It is critical that sufficient support is provided to enable work to always pay and be sustainable. Congress, we must recommend the government that parents should get 85% of what they can claim for childcare up front and not in arrears. Helping people move people into work benefits the economy and government finances. Good quality childcare enhances a child's life, in which turn enhances both society and our economy. Congress is well aware of these facts, and we should ask the government, no, we should demand the government to acknowledge and ensure both of these are a priority. How dare the Tories mess with our benefit system and better themselves and not the most vulnerable in our society? A wise man many years ago said something as true as it was then as it is today. That man was Nye Bevin, and the Tories are still lower than vermin. I move.
Thank you, Kevin. Seconder.
Adam Wilkinson, Birmingham and West Midlands region. First time delegate, first time speaker. Seconding motion 416, Universal Credit Childcare Policy. President, Congress. I work as a gas engineer in social housing. I see firsthand on a daily basis how this government is putting families in more and more debt. Congress, we can't stand still. We must act now. We need to get this government to pay in full and not in arrears. Congress, I second.
Well done, Adam. Well done. Move on 418, please.
Madam President, General Secretary, Congress, Jan Smith, London Region, move and motion 418. Congress, I'm moving this motion on behalf of one of our delegates who could not be here due to health reasons within their family. Congress, the motion is fairly self-explanatory. And what we are calling for is for the GMB to set up a campaign to go to other organisations to seek that there are no deductions, third party or otherwise, be taken out of our claimants' benefits. As a retired magistrate of 29 years' service, I have witnessed people being brought to court and having money or tried to have money deducted out of their benefits. I have witnessed the hardship that they are suffering and also the debts that they have got into. So Congress, please move this motion, support this motion. I move that we make up a campaign that there is no money deducted out of their benefits, whether it be credit tax, universal credits, or anything. They are in hardship to start with, they wouldn't be claiming it. So please support this motion.
Thank you, Jan. Seconder?
President, Congress, Mark Watson, London Region, seconding motion 418, no deductions from welfare benefit payments. As you heard from Jan, people who receive benefits or universal credit can be debited for previous household debt. The Department of Work and Pensions, or DWP, can only take 3 payments at any one time, but that is enough to take from some claimants up to 40% of their award. To add insult to injury, some of the debt was created by the DWP. Advance payments were made to most people to tide them over whilst they waited the 5 weeks it took for universal credit to kick in. Recent figures show that there are around 850,000 claimants with an advance repayment in place. Data published only last month is damning about the system. It shows the total amount of money withdrawn from claimants' monthly allowance under the new system has increased from 13 million to 39 million in the year to October 2018. This debt is forcing a growing number of claimants to sacrifice the basics and fueling the dependence on food banks. Faced with these figures, the DWP is backtracking a little bit. By the end of this year, they will only be able to take 30% of your award. That is still too much. Congress, please carry this motion and vote to eliminate in-benefit debt. Congress, I second.
Thank you, Mark. Mover of motion 419.
Morning, Congress. Gordon Brunning, London Region. Vaughan, this one's for you. I wish you well, okay? I hope you get better soon, mate. Moving motion 419, welfare benefits paid in advance, not in arrears. Congress, think on this. As a benefit claimant, you're owed in-work and out-of-work benefit. You're entitled to tax credits, universal credit. However, you are not simply paid as you should be by the DWP, but when you attend your first job centre interview, the first thing you are asked is this: do you want a loan? Why would I need a loan is the response of most claimants. The response from the DWP: quite simply, it could, and in most cases often does, take us 8 weeks before we pay you. A ridiculous and unworkable state of affairs. People cannot simply live on air alone and goodwill and good wishes. This is not just the case for new claimants, but for existing claimants who are simply being moved from existing benefits Job Seekers Allowance, ESA, to the new tax credit and universal benefit. We call on this Congress to develop and champion campaigns for all in-work and out-of-work benefit payments to include any tax credits and universal payments to be made in advance and not in arrears of the current, which is the current practice. Claimants should not be forced to unnecessary poverty because a system that is in place is not fit for purpose and should be scrapped as soon as practicably possible. In supporting this motion, we have a clear opportunity to show this Tory government that as a trade union, we will no longer tolerate the humiliation and underpayment of those entitled to benefits. Enough is enough. Please support this motion. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Spot on. Seconder of 419. Formally. Thank you. Move of 420, please.
Gary Harris, London Region, moving motion 420. Welfare benefit payments to cover annual cost of rent, actual cost of rent. President Congress, private sector landlords don't hesitate to charge maximum rent possible. This, however, comes at the detriment to many claimants as they are left to pay the shortfall or find cheaper accommodation. Prior to the introduction of universal credit, landlords were consulted and informed that the council would not pay over the market rent. The basis of the assessment of universal credit stems from the rent officer's decisions on the market rent and as of 2015. Each area is given a housing allowance based on household composition, such as the number of persons in the property, the number of bedrooms, which cannot exceed 4, and the market rent area. To clarify, let me give you a scenario. A young mother and her baby were placed in temporary accommodation after she separated from her partner and lost her job. She was forced to leave her former property after falling into arrears of rent, utility bills and council tax. After DWP assessed her claim, it was deemed that she had made herself intentionally homeless. How? This is ridiculous. This is a young woman with a small baby and no income. Has this system gone mad? Is this system not designed to help the most vulnerable and not to create further hardship? Due to this failure of the current system, claimants can be forced into homelessness with no alternative but to apply for discretionary housing payments, look for cheaper housing accommodation, use their own finances or seek help from homeless unit. The system is not working and those who are already vulnerable are suffering. Congress, we call for a cap on the amount of rent landlords are able to charge and for it to be in line with market rent. This will allow for a fair assessment and to ensure that this covers the true cost. In addition to this, as the assessment of universal credit currently includes the assessment of rent, we would like to see this separate due to the complexity. I move.
Thank you, Gary. Seconder. Formally, thank you, London Region. Move of 421.
Madam President, Congress, this resolution 421 is dealing with the administration process of universal credit, requesting that it be transferred to local authorities. Universal credit encompasses all the benefits that were spoken of by other speakers here today: child tax credit, housing benefit, income support, income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment support, working tax credit, severe disability premium, among loads of others. The application process is purely online at the moment anyway. You've got to check your own eligibility, create an account, make a claim, apply for an advance if you want on your first payment. Then you've got to repay it, of course, which was mentioned by others. You've got to then attend an interview at the job centre with all your documentation, which is a load of stuff. And then you might get your payment after 5 weeks, but it could be as much as 8 or more weeks if the documentation or whatever it is isn't in line with what they require. Housing benefit today, which is a large part of the benefit process, is with local government, but is progressively being transferred to universal benefit. So that means that the meeting real people is being transferred to this process of dealing with people over the telephone and dealing with it online. There are redundancies as a result in the Housing Benefit Administration. If the calculations are incorrect for what you receive after all this process, there's a mandatory reconsideration you can request. But the other benefits like child benefit, tax-free childcare, guardians allowance, tax credits, housing benefit are calculated separately. So there's a different process for those. If you're successful in getting the universal credit, you then have to manage it on a daily virtually basis or a weekly basis, whatever it is. Everything has to be introduced, like new job, extra hours that you work, new child, change of housing, care arrangements, rent changes. And of course, if you're on part-time irregular work or 0 hours contracts, then you'll be on it every day. So it's just a bit of madness. What this motion is saying, Congress, is that a lot of this expertise is already there. It exists at local level, and this expertise is being dismantled in favour of computer input and telephone centres. Higher paid jobs to lower paid jobs, more pressure on staff dealing with desperate customers. We've all seen Daniel Blake. At least he went to the local job centre and had to deal with people who were real people. Today, a lot of the problem is that people have got to do everything online, guided by someone on the other end of the telephone sometimes. It highlighted the plight, Daniel Blake highlighted the plight of the ordinary workers navigating the system, but also it hinted at the stress among staff managing this process. Now, since Universal Credit Office was set up in Glasgow, I know that there have been 5 suicides in the office. So that means that managers in that office have doubled back trying to get urgent mental health training to their managers. What we're offering here in this motion is that it be brought back, the whole process be brought back to local authorities where we get local support, local offices, local knowledge, and the saving of the jobs in housing benefit. So I move. Thank you.
Perfect, Patrick. Thank you. Well done. Seconder.
Morning, Congress. President. Maureen Malone, London Region, second motion 421. Local councils to take over the process of universal credit. Congress, universal credit and its lack of timely delivery has caused a lot of hardship to GMB members and their families. Over the years, as a result of this, several GMB members have fallen into debt and the worst case scenario, losing their homes and having to go to food banks to feed their families. Congress, something needs to be done, and it needs to be done quickly to ensure that GMB members receive their much-needed benefit before the wolf comes to the door. Congress, by moving universal credit to the local authorities, it would be a better streamlined service. This would ensure that GMB members receive their benefits on time, as well as saving many GMB jobs in housing. Congress, I second.
Thank you, Maureen. Mover, London Region to move Composite 20.
Morning again, Congress. Chair, Congress. Gordon Brunning, London Region, moving Composite 20, composing motions 422 and 423, PIP, Benefit Assessments and Review Process. On an almost daily basis, we read in the national press that this government are making changes to the PIP assessment and review process. Since 2013, this government have been moving our disabled members from DLA to PIP. As a trade union, we stand in clear opposition to the PIP assessment and review process, as we rightly should. However, we must continue to challenge and demand changes to a system and process that is broken and does nothing more than cause unwarranted stress and anxiety to our disabled members living and dealing with long-term physical and hidden disabilities. We call on this GMB Congress and its associated disabled groups to actively and positively support this motion, ensuring our disabled members get the support they need and are clearly entitled to when having to continually go through the PIP assessment and review process, and in most cases, needless reviews, to fully engage in urgent, meaningful consultation with all leading political parties at the highest level, raising awareness of this unacceptable and disgraceful working practices, demanding a timely and much-needed urgent review, calling on the government to overhaul the PIP process and how this process is managed, to utilise legal expert advice to achieve what is not an unreasonable or unrealistic expectation. Your support for this motion is essential in ensuring our disabled members retain their dignity and are given the respect they deserve during this difficult and stressful process, and ultimately receive the benefits they need and are clearly entitled to. Please support the motion. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Seconder from Birmingham.
President, Congress, Lisa McCready, Birmingham and West Midlands Region. First time delegate, first time speaker. Seconding Composite 20. Thousands of disabled people are left in poverty and emotionally broken because of unfair PIP assessments. These assessments are often done by people who have little or no medical background. The decisions made to reduce or remove payments can have grave consequences for the people who need and rely on these payments the most. If someone loses their payments, the appeal process can take years, leaving people financially destitute. Sometimes the stress of this is too much for people to take. Talisa Rose Smith was a bubbly, outgoing 27-year-old. Her mother said how she loved people and laughing, but found social situations difficult. Talisa was facing eviction because her PIP payment had been reduced. With a history of mental health issues, she was sadly let down by a cruel system. Talisa took her own life in March this year. One death is one too many. 17,000 sick and disabled people have died while waiting for payments. Families and lives have been destroyed. This needs to stop and stop now. I second. Congress support this motion.
Well done, Lisa. That's hard having to wait till the last day to make your first speech. Does anyone wish to speak against any of these motions? No? Can I ask then Viv Smart from the CC to come and give the CC position? And can I then call the last movers of the day, 431, 432, 434 and 435, and emergency motion 1, please.
President Congress, Viv Smart speaking on behalf of the CEC. The CEC are supporting motions 416, 421 and Composite 20 with qualifications. On motion 416, we recognise the importance of affordable childcare, and the proposals in this motion could make a difference to those who do not have a high disposable income or savings to pay for all their childcare costs up front. The qualification for the motion applies to the paragraph which suggests that funds from the current scheme of tax-free childcare and 30 hours of free childcare for households earning less than £200,000 per year should be diverted to improving universal childcare support. The vast majority of our members, and indeed a great number of the general public, live within this threshold, and we would not want to see them at a detriment. On motion 421, we recognise there may be advantages to administering benefits such as universal credit within local government. The CEC's qualification, however, is that any proposed government shift of administration should take full account of the views of the current workforce in the DUP and their union. The qualification for Composite 20 is that while Union Line can provide some initial advice to members, we do not have the expertise or resource for more detailed benefits advice or to represent members on individual disability issues such as appeals. Equally, while we support the view that no one should be forced to face appeals alone, being accompanied should be an option, not a requirement. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking for motion 421 and Composite 20 to be supported with the qualifications I have laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Viv. Does Birmingham accept the qualification on motion 416? Yes? Or I got the wrong script. Does Birmingham accept the qualification on 416? Yep, thank you. I'll take the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Motions 418, 419, 420, the CEC are all supporting. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Thank you. London Region, do you accept the qualification on motion 421? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Thank you. And do London Region and Birmingham accept the qualification on Composite 20? Yes? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Grand. Thank you. We now move on to our final debate. So can I have move of motion 431, please?
President, Congress, comrades, Gordon Cullum, London Region, are moving motion 431. 2019 marks the 20th year of the solitary confinement and imprisonment of Abdullah Öcalan by the state of Turkey. Öcalan, the forefather of the Kurdish liberation struggle and whose ideology laid the foundation for the liberation of Rojava region of northern Syria. A region that now is working towards a feminist, multi-ethnic, democratic, cooperative society. The recent struggle for Kurdish independence and for freedom in this area was also born out of the fight against ISIS, led by the YPG and YPJ. The latter being an all-women defence army led not only in the defence of Kurds, but an example of feminist socialist organising created and led by women in the defence of all ethnicities and religious makeups in the area. International leftist volunteers from around the world rightly saw this battle as a modern anti-fascist one, with correlations between the Spanish Civil War and the resistance against Franco-fascism, which saw over 30,000 volunteers join the international brigades. In this recent struggle for liberation, 8 volunteers from the British Isles have been killed, including Anna Campbell, a heroic young woman who originates just down the road from Brighton in Lewes. The absolute tragedy being her family was unable to bring her body home due to a callous Erdogan regime who routinely oppresses and murders Kurds and their allies. This oppression and abuse of human rights struck also to political opponents such as the imprisonment of HDP party co-chair Salamatin Demirtas and former chair Figen Yüksekdag. We call for the release of all Kurdish political prisoners held in Turkey, to reaffirm solidarity with the HDP and with independent trade unions, unions which have seen a massive crackdown, including the imprisonment of hundreds of union representatives, but also the Turkish regime has jailed teachers, civil servants, and now has the largest amount of journalists in prison than any other country in the world. Finally, we move to recognise and build links with the Democratic Federation of Northern Syria, i.e. Rojava. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Gordon. Seconder.
President Congress, Brett Connors, London Region, moving or supporting motion 431. The role of women in the Kurdish liberation movement will be known to many people, especially after the YPG dedicated the defeat of ISIS in its capital of Raqqa in October 2017. To all the women of the world, alongside the Schumann banner of Dadiola Öcalan, whose ology and creating a feminist, multi-ethnic, democratic and cooperative society from the start of women influenced Öcala's ideology. Öcalan is currently serving a life sentence in solidarity. Confirmation of the Islamic island. Over 1,000 Turkish security personnel are stationed around him. And he's allowed no contact with the outside world, not even with family. Only recently, after heavy international pressure from the Kurdish people and support of the movement launching worldwide hunger strikes, including 3,000 Kurdish prisoners who have been holding hunger strikes since November, allowing the meeting of his lawyers. In 2005, the European Court of Human Justice ruled that the Turkish violated Article 1.5 and 6 of the European Convention of Human Rights by granting him no remedy to appeal his arrest and sentencing him to death without a fair trial. In request of the Turkish Öcalan's health and security today against the Kurdish community, I support this motion.
Thank you, Brett. Well done. Mover of motion 432.
Morning, Congress. Technician guy, I won't touch the mics, I promise. Fevzi Hussain, London Region, moving 432, Palestinian Solidarity. Colleagues, the situation has gone on for far too long for both Palestinians and the Israelis. While the Israeli-Palestine conflict is now the oldest of the conflicts that are ripping the Middle East apart, it is also the only one whose solution is known and widely shared with the international community. Despite the constant deterioration of the situation on the ground, the parameters of a future agreement have not changed. Two states living in peace and security with contiguous, secure and recognised borders drawn on the basis of the 1967 demarcation lines and mutually agreed land swaps, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, and with an agreed and realistic, just and equitable solution for Palestinian refugees. So, Mr. Trump, we do not accept your imposition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and your decision is condemned by this conference. For Palestinians and Israelis, the situation is both physically and psychologically devastating, and it has to come to an end. We talked yesterday of the Jalaliwell massacre exactly 100 years ago. The Israeli Defense Force also uses live ammunition as a means of addressing unrest. The Israeli government is the only government in the world that automatically prosecutes children in their military courts. Israel has prosecuted and arrested at least 8,000 Palestinian children since the year 2000. Aham Tamimi was one of those arrested
and prosecuted. This motion calls for more to be done to support our Palestinian brothers and sisters. This motion calls on the GMB to organise a solidarity trip to the region. It's excellent that both our President and Vice Presidents have both recently been to Palestine, and I'm sure their experiences there will tell us that we must do more to help these vulnerable people. I'm incredibly proud as a Labour Party member that one of the things in our brilliant socialist manifesto, created under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, is that when Labour comes into power, they will immediately recognise Palestine. In addition to the solidarity trip, we must build greater awareness of the plight of the Palestinian people. Congress, before I close, I'll leave you with a quote from one of my all-time heroes, Nelson Mandela. Madiba said, "We all know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." So free, free Palestine, long live Gaza, I move.
Thank you, Fevzi. Seconder to that?
President, Congress, Millie Boundy, London Region, seconding motion 432. Palestine is such an emotive subject. The ongoing and underreported horrific conflict and humanitarian crisis, which has been going on for over 50 years. Shameful. We need to recognise Palestine. We need to understand the struggle, recognise the oppression of these people on behalf of all the innocents involved, the children who are regularly blindfolded and marched out of their houses in the middle of the night and who have seen their mums and dads beaten up, battered and abused repeatedly, or possibly even murdered. I've seen the humanity in this room, speakers from within who've moved us all to tears. Leroy Rossenier, who described how it feels to be outcasted. On behalf of all these innocents, the outcasts, the children, I move you to support this motion. We need the GMB to reassess the area and go into discussion with the Palestinian trade union movement. Free, free Palestine, long live Palestine. I second.
Thank you, Millie. Mover of motion 434.
Iftikhar Umar, Birmingham, West Midlands Region, moving motion 434, first time delegate, first time speaker. Thank you. President, Congress. I'm moving motion 434, Chinese detention camps for Muslims. I'm calling on this year's Congress to bring pressure on the UK government to join other countries on their condemnation of these detention camps for Uyghur and Kazakh Muslims, and also join the international community to have these camps closed down, where approximately 1 million Muslim men and women are being detained. The Chinese Foreign Minister has said this is gossip that approximately 1 million Muslims are being kept in internment camps. After denying their existence, China has begun to acknowledge them, but describes the camps as vocational training centres and embodies the humane management and care of campaign in the name of counterterrorism in the Xinjiang province, and he hoped that people would support the region's governments in the effort to fight terrorism. Since 2014, the Chinese government has significantly intensified the size and the number of these camps to 44. As a hardline secretary, Chen Quango took charge of the region in August 16. These camps have reportedly been secretly and outside of any legal system. Many Uyghurs and Kazakhs have been locked up without trial and charge being levied against them.
Local authorities have reportedly been holding hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs and Muslims of other ethnic minorities in these camps for stated purpose of countering extremism and terrorism. A Chinese government official rejected international criticism these internment camps in restrictive Xinjiang region, calling them job training centers that will gradually disappear if one day society no longer needs it. Beijing has also denied the accusation, saying people are attending vocational education centers to rid them of any extremist thoughts in a region that was hit by deadly riots and attacks in recent years. These so-called attacks were demonstrations due to the Chinese government's policy to force Uyghur Muslims out of their own region, which they have resided in for over 1,000 years. This is due to the region's rich oil and gas minerals. As a crackdown, the Chinese government is restricting the amount of places where Muslims can worship, forcing Muslim communities to worship in censored mosques, which can be controlled. There have been 31 mosques and 2 shrines which have suffered major damage, and investigators have also identified 9 further sites which have been completely destroyed. British diplomats who visited the Xinjiang region in August 18 have confirmed that the reports of mass intern camps for Uyghur Muslims were broadly true. The Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, has told Parliament, any future trade deals with China must address this issue. If you'd like to read more on the subject, the BBC has done a documentary called China's Hidden Camps, and The Guardian has also done a very comprehensive report on it. I therefore ask Congress to support this motion. I move.
Well done, Edgar. Yeah, it's so hard being a first-time delegate and waiting all this time to make your first speech, but well done all those that are today. Seconder of motion 434. Formally, thank you. Move of motion 435.
Jason Evans, Midland and East Coast region. Moving motion 435, delegation to Cuba. President, Congress. This motion calls for Congress support in sending a delegation of older members to visit Cuba in 2020 in order to gain insight share experience, understanding, and solidarity. Cuba has just celebrated the 60th anniversary of its revolution and the 80th anniversary of the formulation of the CTC, which is the Cuban equivalent of our TUC. Cuba is also developing its new constitution, and in doing so has consulted over the draft at over 130,000 meetings across the island, in workplaces, schools, and community centres. What a great example of real social democracy in action. If only we could do the same over Brexit, rather than pulling our nations apart through continual squabbling in Parliament. Thank you. There's obviously a lot we can learn from Cuba. CTC Congress recently focused on the growing non-state sector in Cuba, where now over 29% of the Cuban workers are employed. Clearly, this is a crucial time for our Cuban comrades, and it's certainly a critical time for ourselves in the UK. Our international links build our strength, support and influence. The time is definitely right for such a visit. Congress, please support this motion. I move.
Thank you, Jason.
Cheers, Jason. Brilliant.
No
Well,
cup.
Sorry?
No cup.
No, I don't need it. I'm last one on anyhow, Anna. You're not going to throw me off very easily. No, I haven't got much to say. Miles Short, Midland and East Coast Region, second motion 435, delegation to Cuba. President, Congress. Cuba is a beautiful, proud and principled nation which has struggled against adversity for many and many decades, mainly as a come of a president. Blockade, US blockade. God, you must get up early in the morning to do that. You really must. The Cuban training of its health workers, doctors and nurses, not only the pride of Cuba nation, but the South American as a whole. Cuba is developing and is needed to play our part in supporting understanding. Congress, we had another great Congress here in Brighton this year, building on our Congress visit to Dublin in 2015. I'm considering a motion for next year to go to Congress in 2021 in Havana. Don't have a heart attack, Tim. Congress, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. Cheers. A mover of emergency motion 1.
Nathan Clark, London Region, L54 branch, moving emergency motion 1 on the violent collapse of the banana sector in Cameroon. President, Congress. Right now, as I speak to you here, a civil war rages on in Cameroon, which is largely unreported in this country. Cameroon itself is a country divided between the French-speaking Francophone majority and the English-speaking Anglophone minority, although officially it is one country. Most of the wealth and governance is concentrated in the Francophone area, leading to resentment and anger in the Anglophone community, which has in turn given rise to a rebel separatist movement. Much of the banana industry is based in the Anglophone area. The banana workers and ordinary civilians in the Anglophone area are now stuck between rebels and government military forces. Since April, the banana plantations have been razed to the ground, the workers' villages attacked, with some torched, displacing innocents everywhere. Most people have fled the area and have become unwelcome refugees in Nigeria or in the Francophone area, which has led to many being attacked or threatened. Latest figures state that at least 1,850 people have been killed. 35,000 people have fled to Nigeria, and 500,000 people have been displaced. GMB has a fine record of supporting banana workers and the Food and Allied Workers Union FAWU in Cameroon. The FAWU Women's Committee established a relationship with London Region's very own GMB sisters. And after a 4-year education project run by Banana Link with support from GMB, FAWU representatives were able to recruit over 2,000 new members and set up the Women's Committee. But now, in 2019, the union is virtually non-existent. FAWU union officials are only able to get to the office on rare occasions and certainly not out to the field. There is zero income, and since February, the situation has become critical, with the likelihood that the union will collapse completely. Thousands of people are homeless and without any means of support. The banana industry, the main source of work, is in tatters, and it will take some years to regrow and rebuild the plantations, even after there is some resolution to the conflict, which right now is unlikely. The Cameroon government seems to be in no hurry to resolve the situation in southwest Cameroon. Our government should be making representations to the Cameroon government to find a solution. This Congress calls upon GMB to use the means at its disposal to pressure and lobby our British government to fight its Brexit paralysis and work to promote a resolution in Cameroon and save not just a major industry, but the lives of countless people across the country. I see I have a little bit of time left, so I'd just like to take a moment to say how privileged and honoured I feel to have stood at this rostrum so many times this week, speaking on important, critical matters, and I am incredibly proud to be a part of this amazing, hard-working, dedicated, dignified, powerful trade union movement. Congress, I move, please support this motion. Thank you.
And Nathan, we've enjoyed listening to your passionate speeches. Thank you. I do. Is there a seconder for emergency? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
President, Congress, Obi Amadi representing London Region, seconding the emergency motion 1 on the violent collapse of the banana sector in the Cameroon. I don't know what I can add to what my previous colleague has said, but here goes. Congress, GMB are members of the International Union of Food Workers, and we should work with them to support the Cameroon workers who have been suffering due to the collapse of this industry. Sisters and brothers, I ask you to pass this resolution and to raise money through a branch appeal and from the union's funds to support a small but active and hard-working union to survive until a proper solution to the situation is established. We have a proud record of supporting workers in the global south who are less fortunate than ourselves, and in Cameroon, GMB is highly regarded as a sister union. If and when the conflict is resolved and the banana industry is revived, the union will need a lot of help and support to rebuild the organisation. When the banana industry is rebuilt, it will be vital that the FAWU can organise and negotiate terms and conditions. This will take time, it will take sensitivity, given that workers have fled and allegiances will be challenging, not to mention the replanting and reconstruction of plantations. So with the help of Banana Link and GMB, FAWU would be able to build the union using the education programme and strategy that was developed before the conflict. Clearly, this is going to require funds, which could be raised through GMB's good offices and would mean the difference between life and death for this hard-working union and its needy members. So, Conference, I ask you to support this resolution and in these difficult times, support our brothers and sisters in the Cameroon. Conference, I second.
Thank you, Obi. Perfect timing. Does anybody wish to speak against any of these motions? Okay, can just let us know which one it is you're speaking against.
Congress, President David McMullen from Southern Region, speaking without the support of my region and speaking against motion 435 to send a delegation of older members to Cuba. Congress, GMB is all about inclusion, and I just have an issue that it's a very small demographics of our members that would be going out to Cuba. I feel actually we should be sending a delegation open to all members that can bid in a fair and transparent process for that. And for that reason, I wish to speak against and would urge Congress to vote against that motion for the reasons that I've just detailed. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other speak? Yep. On the same one? Yep. No. Come up then. Yeah, we'll open the door.
Yeah, Mary Louise Harrison, speaking on behalf of myself against motion 432. In essence, I agree with this motion. I agree that we should be creating links and working with our friends and partners in Palestine, but I would also ask that this motion expands to also working with those in Israel who want peace. You know, Nelson Mandela was quoted. Nelson Mandela would never have just spoken to one side. He was always there to look and to bring about peace. Palestine is controlled by Hamas, which for Israelis is a terrorist organization. They have financial support from other big players in the region, such as Iran. We need to be creating links to create peace across the divide. And so I would ask that any trip to Palestine also looks at working with those in Israel who want to bring about peace and work with their brothers and sisters in Palestine, because there are such groups, particularly the mothers of Israel and Palestine. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Louise. Are there any other speakers on this? Then does Jason on 435 want the right of reply? Yep.
Okay, Congress, Jason Evans, Midlands and East Coast Region, 435. We had the debate that has been raised from the brother from the London region at the pre-Congress meeting of the Midlands and East Coast region. And the motion from the branch is quite specific, but our debate included the likelihood of the challenge, and I believe we would be open to an inclusive sort of delegation, but the wording of the motion was quite specific. So I accept the challenge, and I just wanted Congress to be aware that it was recognised and has been debated in the region on the same principle.
Thank you, Jason. Betsy, do you want the right of reply?
Fevzi is saying London region exercising right of reply. Just briefly, sister who got up in opposition, or I'm not sure if it was opposition, maybe technical opposition. I'm sure the GMB will take on board in the facilitation of any trip. I think the motion was specifically about Palestinian solidarity. I think no one disputes that there are incredibly brave Jewish people in Israel who are fighting for the rights of the Palestinians as well. And I absolutely take my hat off to them. But the motion is about Palestinian solidarity. Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world, with over 2 million people there. So I just wanted to make that point, but I'm sure it will be taken on board. That's my right of reply.
Thank you, Bevsy. Can I then ask Gordon Richardson to speak on behalf of the CEC?
Good morning, everybody. President Congress, firstly, I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly apologise to Jan and the London region for the last time I was up here, if my previous CEC response unwittingly caused any distress, so I'm sorry. So, speaking on behalf of the CEC on motions 431, 432, 435 and emergency motion 1. On motion 431, solidarity with the Kurds in Turkey and Rojava, the CEC is asking for this motion to be referred. With the thrust of the motion, in keeping with the GMB's existing policies on the issue of Kurdish solidarity and freedom for Öcalan, the CEC is asking for the motion to be referred so we can look into what a relationship with the Democratic Federation of Northern Syria, Rojava, looks like. On motion 432, Palestine solidarity, the CEC is supporting this motion also with a qualification. This motion is in line with the GMB's existing policy on Palestinian solidarity, a cause which this union has been proud to support for many, many years, affirmed by successive congresses. The motion requests that the GMB organise a trip. Our qualification is that there are a number of organisations that the union works with who have existing programmes for members wishing to engage more on the issue. Members are able to request financial support from the union for participating in and including through their branches. Since this motion was submitted, there's been a delegation of GMB activists, including our National President and National Public Services President, who have visited the occupied territories in solidarity. The report has been brought back from this trip and will be part of the union's political agenda in the future. Motion 435, delegation to Cuba. The C is asking for this motion to be referred. This motion asks the GMB to send a national delegation of older or retired members to Cuba and the Cuba Solidarity Campaign in 2020. The union on a national level does not usually organise and sponsor international delegations for a particular section of our membership, and so we need to be inclusive. And on such a specific issue as this, the GMB has actively sent delegates to Cuba with Cuba Solidarity Campaign for wider solidarity and educational purposes, with a number of young members attending the Young Trade Unionists May Day Brigade each year. However, this was not organised nationally, but rather on the members or branches or the region's own initiative, an agreement to financially support the member in paying the costs of attending. It's recommended that the motion is referred to the CEC Political, European and International Committee to consider further whether the delegation programme that the motion proposes is something the union can organise and sponsor on a national level. For emergency motion 1, we're supporting with a qualification, and that is that the Finance and General Purposes Committee set up an appropriate fundraising appeal for Faro and the banana workers. Therefore, Congress, please agree to refer motions 431 and 435 and agree to support motions 432 and emergency motion 1 with qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Last speaker of the day. Okay, London Region, do you agree to refer motion 431? Thank you. All those in favour then, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. London, do you agree? Do you so accept the qualification on motion 432? Yep, thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. 434, CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Midlands and East Coast, do you accept to refer the motion 435? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Emergency motion 1, London, do you accept the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. That's the last motion of the day. Can I just say to any of the regions, but FEVSI in particular, June and I did a fringe event yesterday on Palestine, which a lot of people couldn't make because they went to the show Racism and Red Card, which we understood. But we are offering any region, if they would like that PowerPoint presentation that we've done, we will be happy to come and deliver it to any group. Please take that offer up. That would be really, we would like to do that because we're really passionate now about what we saw and how it's affected us. So, thank you, Congress. Is there any other Congress business? But before we move to the formal close of Congress for this year, I have a few quick announcements. Can I please ask regional secretaries to ensure that regional banners are removed from the Congress Hall at the close of Congress? And can I just say thank you for my first Congress. Thank you to delegates. You've been stars. You've kept to time. It's a bit like a swan. There's all things that are smooth on the surface, but underneath there's lots of people running around. So I'd like to personally thank SOC, all the team upstairs, the comms team, all the office staff. If I start naming names, I'll get somebody wrong. But I just want to say thank you because you don't know what goes on behind those scenes. Thank you. So we are now commencing the closing procedure of Congress, which will start with the omnibus vote of thanks to be given by Martin Jackson.
Martin Jackson, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. CEC delegate. Congress, it's a great honour to be nominated to give the vote of thanks on behalf of the CEC. I feel proud and privileged to be nominated to deliver it. Can I first give thanks from the CEC to our worthy National President. Fantastic job, Barbara. On your first Congress and delegates, there's no practice runs, there's no rehearsals. And Barbara, you've delivered brilliantly. You've run Congress providing a clear agenda, fluently and faultlessly, allowing Congress to progress smoothly through a very demanding agenda. In the GMB tradition, with honour, with humour and compassion. Well done, Barbara. To June, our last-minute temporary Vice Chair, thank you, June, for stepping up to the mark so well and so competently with a very little notice. Both Barbara and June give our delegates confidence, especially the first-time speakers, to get up here and to give it everything. Both Barbara and June perhaps need some of Malcolm's advice in relation to the trigger finger with the red button, though. A very special vote of thanks must be given to our worthy National Secretary, Tim Roach. Tim, you've been through a difficult patch over the last couple of weeks, and it's a great credit to your strength of character and your professionalism, your public persona, that you've continued leading and guiding the debates this week, whilst going through a period of personal, emotional, fantastic distress. Thank you, Tim. Your knowledge of our issues is remarkable, and your leadership guiding us through these issues is invaluable. Well done, mate. Tim, I hope that now Congress is over, GMB gives you a couple of days off to take a bit of a breath, mate, and catch your breath. Congress, the SOC has yet again provided invaluable guidance and support to Congress. Thank you to the Helen and the whole team, provided a brilliant support. To Steve Short and his team, is Steve around? Thank you for providing a great venue and a smoothly run, well-organised Congress. As ever, the backroom staff have been a credit to the union. Thank you too to all the staff and volunteers in this centre for your hospitality this week. Your contribution has been tremendously appreciated, and we value all your free tea and coffee. Thank you. Most of all, Congress, the CEC would like to give thanks to you, brothers and sisters, the delegates. Year after year, it amazes me and us how we continue to find delegates, new and old, that deliver such fantastic motions, but we do. All delegates make Congress what it is. You give us the issues, you explain them with the passion, enthusiasm and vigour. We had issues such as academies. It's scandalous, comrades, that whilst we're creating fat cats in our schools, our kids can't eat, they can't even read and write because there's no books and pens, and yet there's senior managers and fat cats being created in these academies. It's disgraceful. ASDA, Congress, Tim, Justin, it's time that we stop pussyfooting around with ASDA. Let's do what the GMB do best and deliver what we deliver in relation to Amazon and other places where we campaign and we get out there and we show our face. Asda will crumble within a week if we started organising a campaign at each outlet. And if they want to kick us out of the canteen into the car park, yet again, that's where we do our business best. We can deliver. Let's deliver at Asda. In Scunthorpe, comrades, Anthony, in steel industry, the car industry, shipbuilding, we must put every resource that we've got into getting the long-term future of steel and other industries back on the agenda. Congress, if we get a Labour government back into the power for the first time since the 1950s, a proper Labour government, then their policies will generate production in manufacturing, and we'll see what we need and we'll see what we deserve. Equality in gas and water as well. Let's get back to proper Labour, comrades. The Labour government will also invest in the future of our public services, the NHS, schools, local authorities, funded to deliver for our future. They don't need extra funding, Congress. They've already got it. All they need to do is to make these fat cats multinational pay tax. It's as simple as that. Retired Members Association, we fantastically value your contribution, and I'll personally be moving into your sphere in the near future. However, retired members are represented in every body of the GMB, overrepresented in most of them. There's only one where they're not represented, and that's in the young members. And even Tim can't get a foot in that door. So getting places and seats on different committees, you've got them, RMA, and we welcome your contribution, and we value contribution massively. Let's move together forward and try and develop policies that encompass all. So delegates, over 400 motions delivered, debated and decided. Over 20 rule changes delivered, debated and decided. Special reports delivered, debated and decided. Job done, delegates. Industrial, political and social GMB policy set up for another 12 months. Delivered by you, debated by you and decided by you. Now, Tim, Barbara. Tim, Barbara, sorry, I didn't let that slip out, Tim. Tim, Barbara and the senior management team and the CEC will now scratch our heads and go away and try and deliver. Congress, thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Martin. I now call on the General Secretary, Tim Roach, to speak.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Marion. Thank you very much, Martin. Brilliant, mate. Thank you. What a good fellow you are. Anyway, I think we'd never met. Conference 40 years next month. I've been working with this organisation, and genuinely, this has been one of the best congresses I've ever been to. Who's enjoyed it? Who's enjoyed it? Amazing delegates, incredible speeches, so many people here for the first time too. You're so very welcome, and I hope it's not your only time. I hope you come back year after year after year. Such powerful contributions on steel, on Asda, on cars, on energy, on public services, on manufacturing. London raising so many crucial international issues where our brothers and sisters genuinely are in fear of their lives for daring to be a trade union member. Huge thanks to our guests, our very own GMB sister and now leader of Brighton Hove Council, Nancy Platts, Alison Phillips, the brilliant woman editor of the Daily Mirror, Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, and the incredible Leroy Rossignol, single-handedly the best contribution I've ever heard at GMB Congress, and I mean that. So many people came up to me and said how brilliantly eloquent Leroy was. It wasn't just the content of what he said, conference. It was the way he delivered it. And he had every one of us hanging off his every word. He was an absolutely outstanding contributor. And to the speakers on conference fringes, especially our great friend Angie Rayner, talking about women in the world of work. Keir Starmer, who met a number of our regions to talk about Brexit. Richard Bergen, speaking on access to justice. Alongside discussing Union Line, our GMB credit union, Barbara and June briefing delegates on their recent delegation to Palestine, on health and safety issues, mental health issues, young members issues, the gig economy. Such a fantastic range from a fantastic union that shows the length and breadth of the work that you do every single day. But none of this happens by chance, of course, conference. The team worked so incredibly hard throughout the year to make it happen, and I kid you not, we are genuinely working already to prepare for Congress 2020 in Blackpool. Firstly, all of our Standing Orders Committee. You're a fantastic team. You're a brilliant class act, led by Helen and Craig and Barry Smith, but every single one of you, thank you so much. You sit in that room, but you do so much work. Steve Short, sitting at the back, not just our executive officer, but my bloody good mate. You're always there for me, mate. You always have been. Nothing's ever too much trouble. Thank you, Steve, for everything you do. And for shepherding our smiley stewards. Thanks again, Steve. Thank you to our wonderful stewards who've greeted us every day with a big smile and ensure we've gone on our way. Thank you. And 3 other people who work tirelessly to ensure that Congress business goes so well. Anna Barnes, Lawrence Turner, Charlotte Nichols. Thank you, the 3 of you, very much. It's only their second year. It's only our second year working as a team, putting Congress on, and we've learned so much from last year. There were things we needed to improve. We promised you we would improve, and I think we bloody well have, and I think it's been a fantastic event. Thanks to all 3 of you. Thank you. And Congress, I've never seen the place looking better. When you walk from outside in the streets, you come in here, you look at the set. That's incredible. The agenda, the stage, the videos, the graphics really look like a modern fighting trade union that we are. And over the week, listen to some of these statistics about how we've reached people. More than 750,000 people have seen GMB content and campaigns throughout the week. On ASDA alone, we've reached over 100,000 people. Over 4,000 news items with a potential reach of billions across online, print and broadcast press. We've got only 5 people in our comms team. Other unions have half a dozen just in their digital department. Our team works so hard, so thank you so much, Alex, JPD, John, Jack, Lauren and Ross. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Our whole external relations and training team worked behind the scenes on Congress for months and months. Thank you also, therefore, to Neil, to Sarah, to Tom, to Nell, to Mel, to Carl, and to Paula. Thank you so much. Thank you also to Audrey, to Lindsay, and to the T5 team. And talking to the T5 team, Phil Mazier, I believe it's your birthday today, mate, so happy birthday to you. And it's also his 25th year working on GMB Congress, making it look as brilliant as it does. Thank you, T5 team. Happy birthday, Phil. And the rest of our National Admin Unit and our tellers, Helen Blair, Graham Dow, Pat Gannon, Sangeeta Gilani, Emma Golding, Sue Harris, Monica Julius, Nick McGee, Kevin Panton. Kevin works tirelessly and ensure that everything's in apple pie order. Thank you for your hard work. Catherine Rackham, Dan Shears, Karen Smith and Kerry Smith. Thank you all very much for everything you do. And to the irreplaceable and unstoppable Hilary Perrin for organising our exhibition. I had to say that, otherwise she'd never let me off. Seriously, all of our exhibitors, you're so welcome, not just for your financial contribution, but you make a real difference for our delegates to come and see you. And I know the retired members accrued a lot of money, a lot of money during this week. We will raise that with the Finance and General Purposes Committee to see if we can match that on behalf of the National Union. Well done, the retired members. A huge thank you to my PA, Wendy Bartlam. Not just my right arm, my left arm as well. I get up in the morning, I know exactly where I need to be, where I've got to go. Wendy, I value working with you so much. Thank you for your skills, professionalism. Thank you. To Malk Sage, Malk and Lynn, I know you're not here, mate. Hope you're watching. You've been sorely missed and look forward to seeing and welcoming you next year. Thank you to June for stepping into Malcolm's shoes and filling them with such aplomb. Again, so gracious, so warm and so welcoming. Thank you, June. And to Barbara. What a class act. What an absolute class act. I'm so proud to work with you, mate. You've been incredible this week. So inclusive, so supportive, firm but fair all the time. You've led with real aplomb and shown exactly how a 21st century union treats its people. Thank you so much. I'm going to get emotional now, I know I am, but I can do it now because we're at the end. Thank you to my wife, Mandy, who's sitting there. I honestly wasn't sure I'd get here this week. As I said, my dad died last Friday. You've kept me going, man. Thank you so much. And your support always carries me through. Thank you so much. I love you from my heart. Thank you. My daughter too, Ellie, who's sitting over there. True story, this conference. Ellie worked at the children's nursery, which she and her sister Brogan went to. And she was like the Pied Piper. All the kids loved her. And all of a sudden, she said to me, I've got a new job, Dad. I said, what job's that? She said, I'm working for the GMB in Midland East Coast region. I said to her, why didn't you tell me? She said, because I didn't want you to have anything to do with it at all. Well done, sweetheart. And of course, to my wonderful son, Nick, and my other beautiful daughter, Brogan, for all your unstinting support and caring, particularly in these last 3 difficult weeks. I love you both so much. It's incredible. Thank you. As I said, I didn't know if I was going to get here this week. I genuinely didn't know if I'd be here all of the time. The SMT have been incredibly supportive, every single one of you. Thank you. And to all of you as delegates, I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else. Your warmth, your friendship, your camaraderie, your skills, your professionalism, your passion has lifted me and lifted our whole organisation right on through this week. But we know it's not what we say standing here, it's what we do when we get out there in those workplaces. We are together building and creating a 21st century union, one that stands proud, one that will always be upstanding for our members. We will grow, we will build, we will change, and we will make a difference to working people's lives. And it's you that makes the difference to working people's lives, day in and day out. Sometimes you often don't even realise what a difference you, our activists, make. You ensure that people have a secure job, that have decent pay, decent conditions, that are safe at work and go home to their family at night because of the work you do. Thank you. Walk tall, walk 10 feet tall out of here as together we go forward. I'm so proud to be your General Secretary, and I long to work with you for many years to come. Have a safe journey. I love you all. Thank you. I love you all.
Thank you, Tim. As Tim said, our comms team have been working hard this week, and they've been collecting clips from all your debates and getting some great photos for our end of Congress video. I've got no idea what they've put on there. We hope you've all had a great time here in Brighton for Congress 2019. And then it says, cue the video to start.
Tim Roach, General Secretary, so very proud to be moving the General Secretary's report, and where else to start by saying a huge thank you to every single one of you.
This union is one of the best unions I've ever been in. It's a caring, sharing, and it means a lot to me, that.
Congress President, welcome to the People's Republic of Brighton and Hove.
First Congress, first speaker. Very much. Getting there. Right.
These cuts to social care have to stop, and they have to stop now.
I feel passionate about this. This is my country.
Let's get Britain building again and keep Britain afloat.
I ask you to support this motion.
First time delegate, first time speaker.
First time speaker, first time delegate. I'm not really. I just want to cheer. Sorry.
This struggle is not only theirs, boys, it's yours. It beats in your hearts. It runs through your veins. It's a yearning for justice, to be rid of these chains.
Women workers now know how to flex their industrial muscle. They now know their value and they now know their power, and the city will never be the same again.
Some unions have tried to keep their head down, but that's not the GMB way, and that never will be the GMB way.
Whoever comes in as the next government, let us fight and win GMB.
I've turned my mobile phone off for this speech, so if anybody tweets about me, a president or two, and is abusive, just let me know, please.
Whose choice?
Our choice.
Whose choice?
Our choice.
Academies are a way of top executives getting rich on the backs of the next generation. This cannot and should not be allowed to happen.
Whether you're a GMB member who's born in the UK or in Europe or anywhere else in the world, your union is on your side.
It's amazing to be in Brighton talking to you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
A fighting, campaigning movement, growing our union, building our power, changing the world of work together. Thank you, I move.